If you think the child who doesn't complain is the one who's fine, this story might scare you. I found out too late that the greatest silence in my house didn't come from my autistic son. It came from the other one. My name is Andre. I have 2 sons. Gabriel, 8 years old, autistic. Matthews, 12. For years, I thought our family's challenge was learning to live with the diagnosis, but the real problem was growing quietly in the room next door. And I didn't see it. When Gabriel was diagnosed at 3, everything became urgent. It wasn't just therapy, it was emotional survival. Occupational therapy 3 times a week, speech therapy, behavioral psychologist, constant school meetings, changes in the house lighting, changes in food, changes in routine. My wife, Juliana, cut back on work. I started working overtime. It wasn't about money, it was about fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of not doing enough, fear that the future would be too cruel to him. And in the middle of all this, Matthias never complained, never demanded, never caused trouble, and I made the classic mistake many parents do. I confused silence with maturity. Gabriel had intense sensory overload crises. The sound of the blender could become a storm. Strong food smells could trigger despair. The slightest change in routine could cause an explosion. Screams, crying, repetitive hitting of his own leg, irregular breathing. And when this happened, everything stopped. Everything. Dinner, conversation, rest. The whole house revolved around stabilizing Gabriel. And it was fair. He needed it. But no one noticed that while one son was screaming for help, the other was learning he needed to not be a bother. Matthews began to disappear without leaving the house. He heated his own dinner, organized his own school supplies, washed his own uniform. One night I heard him on the phone. "I can't go today. Things are complicated at home." Complicated. He was 12 years old, and he already described his own family as complicated. That should have been a warning, but I was too busy trying to save one son to notice I was neglecting the other. At school, Matthews was impeccable. Good grades, exemplary behavior, no warnings, no calls to the principal's office. He was the kind of student every teacher praises in meetings. The principal once told me, smiling, "Your son is mature for his age." I felt proud. A quiet, almost relieved pride. Amid so many medical reports, unexpected crises, and difficult meetings because of Gabriel, hearing that at least one of my sons was doing well felt like a breath of fresh air. I repeated that phrase in my head like a prize. He's mature. Today, when I remember that phrase, what I feel isn't pride, it's guilt, because that wasn't maturity. It was forced adaptation. Matthews wasn't naturally more balanced. He wasn't emotionally more prepared. He was just understanding the environment he lived in. Children aren't born ready. They learn. They learn by observing. They learn by feeling. They learn by deciphering what's expected of them. And what my son learned very early was that there was limited space for problems in our house. He realized there was already too much tension, too much worry, too much exhaustion. So he did the only thing he thought possible. He made himself smaller. He became the model student, the well-behaved boy, the one who's never late, the one who never complains. Not because it was easy for him, but because, in his mind, if he caused trouble, if he made a mistake, if he failed, he would be making everything worse. A number 12-year-old should carry that kind of emotional responsibility alone. The breaking point began months before I noticed. The science fair. He decided to make a volcano. He spent weeks researching. He built the model on the kitchen table, while Gabriel did online therapy in the background, repeating syllables with the speech therapist. Matthews would come show me details. "Dad, look at this. Dad, did you know there are volcanoes under the ocean?" I'd answer without looking up from my phone. Health insurance, medical reports, evaluations. "That's cool, son. I'll look at it later." Later. Always later. On the day of the presentation, I promised I'd be there. I promise, looking him in the eye. At 1:20 p.m., Gabriel's school called severe crisis. Aggression. I needed to pick him up immediately. I looked at the clock and made the choice I always made. I went to get Gabriel. I sent a message. Son, something came up with your brother. I won't be able to make it. 3 minutes later, the reply. Okay. 2 words. No period. No emotion. No reproach. And that was what hurt the most. He never reproached me. That night, I found the model leaning against the sofa. Wet. He'd gotten caught in the rain on his way back alone. How was it? Fine. He received an honorable mention. And I wasn't there. But he didn't fight. He didn't complain. He didn't make a scene. And it was exactly that which kept me from seeing the damage. Because a child who screams gets attention. A child who swallows it doesn't. Over time, he stopped asking me to play ball. Before, he'd show up with the ball under his arm, shoes already tied, asking if Primera added just 10 minutes. 10 minutes that almost always turned into a promise for later. After a few refusals, he simply stopped asking. He stopped insisting I come to his practices. At first, he'd still tell me the time. He'd send a message saying the game was about to start. He'd ask if I could at least stop by at the end, until one day he just left the house with his backpack and said, I'll be back later. No expectation, no invitation. When I asked how school was, he'd say, fine. I'd ask about tests. Fine. I'd ask about friends. Normal. I'd ask if anything different had happened. Nothing much. It was always fine. It was always normal. It was always everything's okay. And the way he spoke began to change. It wasn't indifference. It was emotional economy. Short answers. Objective. No room for depth. As if he'd learned that the less he said, the less chance he had of becoming another problem in the house. Sometimes I'd try to start a conversation. What about that new kid in your class? Oh, he's okay. And the championship, it was fine. Fine. Everything was fine. Everything was simple. Everything was handled by him alone. I began to notice he no longer told me when he made a mistake. He didn't talk about lower grades. He didn't mention fights with classmates. He managed his own frustrations in silence, as if he'd internalized that there was already too much emotion in that house, as if he'd decided he wouldn't be the one to turn up the volume. And I accepted it. I accepted it because it was comfortable to believe he was really okay. I accepted it because, amid the crises, medical reports, and constant adaptations, having a son who didn't cause trouble felt like a relief. Primera told myself he's strong. But maybe he wasn't strong. Maybe he was just learning to fit into the space that was left. And the more he adjusted, the less I noticed he was disappearing right in front of me. Until the night everything exploded. It was Tuesday. Gabriel had a hard day. A change in the order of therapy activities. That was enough to throw everything off. At home, he started screaming because the rice was mixed with beans. Juliana tried to separate them. I tried to distract him. Nothing worked. The crisis escalated. I was kneeling on the floor, trying to stabilize his breathing, when I heard the bedroom door slam, heavy footsteps in the hallway. Then Matthias appeared in the kitchen, red eyes, trembling breath, and he shouted, "Enough." Silence. Even Gabriel stopped for a few seconds. Matthews looked at me, and it wasn't hatred. It was accumulated exhaustion. Why does everything revolve around him? Why does no one ever miss anything because of me? Why do I always have to understand? Each question was a punch. Juliana started to cry. Gabriel started screaming again. And in that moment, I understood. I had two sons asking for help. Only one was doing it silently. Later, after we finally calmed Gabriel, I went to Mathias's room. I didn't bring a speech. I didn't bring an explanation. I brought the truth. I failed you. He turned his face away. I thought you were okay because you never complained. Silence. Then he said something I'll never forget. I feel like if I mess up, it'll make everything worse. My son was living as an emotional adult in his own home, and I only noticed when he broke. We reorganized our routine. We created Mathios's Wednesday. No therapy, no phone, no interruptions. At first, he'd ask, "What if Gabriel has a crisis?" I answered, "Today is not your responsibility." He needed to hear that. More than 11. A few weeks later, something unexpected happened. Gabriel was practicing emotional expression in speech therapy. Short phrases. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm happy. One ordinary afternoon, he sat next to his brother, touched his arm, took a deep breath, and said, with effort, "I love you." Tetmafis froze. Then he hugged him. A strong hug. No heroism. No dramatic music. No perfection. Just two brothers who had almost lost each other for lack of emotional space. Mons Latermathos asked to speak at a school lecture on inclusion. He said, "My brother doesn't need me to be perfect. He needs me to be his brother." That day, I understood everything. The problem was never autism. It was that we had forgotten love also needs to be directed with intention. Today, there are still crises. There are still hard days, but there's something that didn't exist before. Balance. Because the child who doesn't scream also needs to be heard. And I almost learned that too late.